Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. DB333, and welcome to the new campaign trail. Once again, last time we hopped in as Richard Nixon, that colorful little lovable scamp, and we ran his administration, try to get ourselves reelected, and it worked out to varying degrees. But now we're here in a whole new country. I think this is the first time I'm playing as a new campaign trail that is not set in America. This, as we can all tell, is a Canada election, of course. I kid, of course. It's South Korea. It's 1971, and South Korea is already an unstable democracy, is in a huge crisis. President Park Chung-hee passed a constitutional amendment for a third term 2 years ago, and this year he challenges a third term according to the new constitution. Kim Dae-jung is a young candidate of the NDP, the main opposition, and he's trying to protect democracy against President Park. This year's election is predicted to be extremely competitive. Two candidates shall do everything to win this race. Literally. Everything. I cannot play that music because it will give me copyright strike, but I might play it after the stream because it is pretty bopping. We're going to be playing as... Oh, good shit, Kev. Good shit. Kim Dae-jung of the New Democratic Party from home state of South Jeolla. Kim Dae-jung is a young member of the National Assembly who was 47 in 1971. Along with Kim Young-sam and Yi Chol-sung, Kim participated in the primary, advocating the 40s candidate theory, which argued that young candidates should challenge Park in the upcoming presidential elections. And after fierce competition with Kim Young-sam, he was nominated as the NDP's presidential candidate. He is also well known as a strong supporter of democracy and one of Park's main rivals. Thanks to this reputation, you have an early lead in this election, but beware of Park's aggressive attacks. He and his supporters will devise all sort of schemes against you. Our party is going to be the New Democratic Party, based out of Seoul. The New Democratic Party, NDP, is the main opposition party in South Korea. There's not much difference ideologically between the DRP and the NDP, but NDP focuses on democracy heavily and struggles to defend democracy against the Park government. Elections ahead, the party seems to be united for now, but everything might change if you make a severe mistake. Alright, so we only have normal difficulty, it seems, so there we go. We have a default polarity system where, say, we just need the majority of votes, and then we win. So, easy enough. Let's take a look. Man, America's looking a little different than I'm used to. Never mind, it's a creature. Oh. Oof. My apologies then. Shit. If you're wondering what I'm talking, by the way, I'm filming this live on Twitch.tv right now. It might be away for a couple months if you're watching this when it's up by now, but you know, it'll catch up. I'll be away for a couple months, but you can follow it for whenever I come back, and I'll be back to streaming. In 1969, President Park Chung-hee passed a constitutional amendment for a third term with the Democratic Republican Party, DRP, to run for president of the next election in spite of numerous oppositions, and today unites your policy for the NDP presidential primary. What made you decide to run? Until now, our party has been incredibly friendly to the government. The people do not vote for our party because the opposition party does not seem like the opposition party. I will actively attack and oppose President Park's policies. While winning the election, I'll increase the support of the NDP. Either. Since the constitutional amendment, it's a good choice to promise a change in the party, as public opinion is increasingly longing for reform within the NDP. Since your announcement of running for the presidential election, 3 politicians in their 40s from the NDP, including you, Kim Young-sam, and Yi Chol-seong have led the 40s candidate theory and are gaining immense popularity. However, Yu Ching-san, later of NDP, strongly opposes the youth candidates, claiming that a veteran politician with years of experience must be a candidate to win the election. Is there anything you can do to convince him? I don't even know anymore. It might have been you. You're probably just joking around. It's a waste of time trying to satisfy you, since he blatantly dislikes me from other factions within the NDP. I'd rather visit the delegates who have the right to vote in person and persuade them to vote for me. You, along with your campaign strategist Yom Chan-rok, meet the delegates one by one in person and appealed for support. Efforts like this can help to some extent to make up for the lack of organization. Pick whichever candidate wants to glass Pyongyang. I don't know if that's any of them necessarily. It's definitely not this guy, though. I'll tell you that much. Yu Chin-seong eventually supported Kim Young-sam and announced he would not run due to the contentious popularity of young candidates. Although Yi Chol-seong also withdrew from candidacy afterwards, he feels very angry and betrayed that Yu did not support him. What would you like to ask? What would you say to ask Yu to support Yi instead of Yi to support you instead of Kim Young-sam? If Kim Young-sam, supported by Yu Chin-sam, is nominated, nothing will change in our party. Let's work together to transform the NDP, and furthermore, this country completely. You'll be at the vanguard of the new Korea. Yi is completely influenced by your persuasion, full of conviction and ideals. He has promised to support you in the primary. Now the primary has become a two-way race between you and Kim Young-sam. Asian name. I'm trying my best. Apologies to any Koreans who are watching this. If you're watching me long enough, you know I can barely speak English sometimes, so I have no chance pronouncing your language. So I'm trying here, so bear with me. On the day of the long-awaited primary, thanks to the support of Yi Chol-seong, you defeated Kim Young-sam and won the NDP primary. Congratulations. Do you have anything to say as you accept the nomination? Our freedom and democracy are increasingly being undermined by the attacks of the DRP for long-term rule. Let's end President Park's regime, which has been marred by dictatorship and oppression, and open an era of democratic and conscientious NDP. Yeah, democracy always wins. We'll keep visiting Seoul, because we just have to get the most votes, so it doesn't necessarily matter who we visit, as long as it's the most populated areas, we get the most votes. As expected by everyone, Park Chung-hee was nominated for the DRP's presidential candidate. How would you like to attack President Park? Recently, Park's distrust of democracy have been gradually revealed. I don't think the chances of him starting a dictatorship if he gets elected again are by no means low. Until a few years ago, this kind of argument would have been ridiculed, but after the constitutional amendment, more and more people have the same concern as you. In July 1970, the Gyeongbu Expressway connecting Seoul and Busan was completed. At the time of construction, you and the NDP opposed the construction of a highway based on the high construction costs and low private car ownership rates. Do you still object to the construction of additional highways? Look, I never made that claim. I only argued that the highway connecting Seoul and Gangneung should be built first for balanced regional development, not opposed to the highway itself. Of course, the necessary highways should be built. At the time, as you said, you made a fairly convincing argument based on the World Bank report. You've successfully expressed your support for the highway without being called spineless. Good move. Vietnamese names are like level 9 boss of unpronounceable names. In my experience, yeah. Personally speaking. Breaking news, Jeon Tae-il, who was working as a worker in Pyeonggwa market in Seoul, attempted to burn himself to death to demand improvements in working conditions and compliance with the Labor Standards Act, and eventually passed away. Do you have anything to say about this unfortunate death? May Jeon Tae-il rest in peace. I call for strong punishment for the companies that created this tragedy by making him and his fellow workers work under very harsh conditions. Jeon Tae-il and his fellow workers worked 14 hours a day, taking only 2 days off per month. The media scrambled to make headlines about Jeon's death along with a shocking fact, and it seems that the darker side of steep industrialization has become known to society at large for the first time. The death of Jeon Tae-il made the treatment and welfare of workers a major issue in society. How do you plan to improve workers' basic human rights? I am planning a bill to improve the working conditions of the workers. I'll create a committee in which businesses and workers participate to discuss labor policies democratically. Actually, I don't know if that's going to be it. I forget which one's the better one. Strict adherences to the laws, I think this is one we already have, can create fairly reasonable working conditions. I will strengthen punishment for companies that violate the Labor Standards Act and also conduct strict crackdowns. Workers like your promise, but some of them want new laws for breakfast. If it was the other one, I should have gone with. I should have done the other one. I'm doing this on my 24-hour stream, by the way, and I'm about 8.5 hours in thus far. So far, so good, but I'm starting to feel it. Another breaking news. The Namyong-ho passenger ship that was sailing from Jeju to Busan sank, killing 326 people. The cause of sinking itself was excessive cargo loading, but the cause of so many deaths is the Coast Guard's late rescue. What's your opinion on the incident? Must do anything to comfort the bereaved families. The National Assembly will form a fact-finding committee led by the NDP to get the full picture of the incident. Dictator for the longest time, only stop of the KCIA, Liberian CIA director himself fucking shot him. Yeah, this is the guy who I think he was president after all that, I believe. I forget when exactly the timeline is on that. The committee tried to investigate several government agencies, but none of them responded to the investigation. In the end, the committee has achieved no results, and the Namyong-ho incident is slowly being forgotten. You came up with an economic theory called mass economy against Park Chung-hee's policy of emphasizing industrialization. Can you elaborate on what the mass economy is? Well, mass economy is an innovative theory based off of social democracy. I'll let workers participate in management and negotiate various issues with companies and implement the minimum wage system. Put forward a very progressive, slightly risky position. This will help you in urban areas where there are many workers, but will also intensify Park's attacks that you are a communist. Well, Park can suck it. How about that? Let's visit Seoul again. It's a big deal. Park Chung-hee has emphasized the traditional conflict between Jeolla and Gyeongsang and stipulated that the confrontation between him and you is a confrontation between Gyeongsang and Jeolla. This strategy worked to great in Gyeongsang, and the antipathy against you is growing out of controlling Gyeongsang. How would you like to deal with the situation? If I don't do anything, things will get worse. For the time being, I'll conduct all campaigns in Gyeongsang and make dozens of promises that will benefit Gyeongsang. He managed to stop regional conflict from escalating further by turning over Gyeongsang, but he still suffered great damage, and your support, which seemed solid, began to fall rapidly. Uh-oh. Kim Young-sam, your main opponent in the primary, has promised to fully support your campaign. How would you like to use his assistance? As you know, Kim Young-sang is from Busan. We should actively use Kim to increase support in Busan and South Gyeongsang. In addition, he can also help to ease regional conflict. You're right. Just keep in mind that Kim is also from Gyeongsang, like Park Chung-hee, so some people in Jeolla hate him. Recently in Korea, a rural modernization project called the Samol Movement was implemented to prevent the decline of rural areas due to industrialization. What do you think of the movement? Well, although I'm an opposition politician, I cannot help but evaluate the Samol Movement positively. I would object to the construction of new buildings, the pavement of roads, and the supply of agricultural machinery. I will continue the Samol Movement even if I'm elected. The Samol Movement is a very popular policy among farmers. In this case, even if it's a policy of Park, approval may not necessarily be a bad thing. After the announcement of the Nixon Doctrine, a relaxation of the Cold War system called détente is appearing all over the world. What do you think about starting a conversation with North Korea for peace and reunification following this trend? What's your selection? 1971. 71, I believe. I'm ready to do everything for peaceful unification. I will hold a summit with North Korea as soon as possible, discuss unification measures, and start various economic and cultural exchanges to restore ethnic homogeneity. I like to call this the Sunshine Policy. Your considerably active commitment to reunification has been very welcomed by displaced people and moderates. Of course, Park always uses that policy as a basis for claiming that you're a communist, as always. Keep working in Seoul. One of your main promises in this election, and the most controversial one, is the abolition of the Homeland Reserve Army. Park Chung-hee argues that abolishing the Reserve Army is only to help North Korea. This promise is a decisive factor in questioning your ideology. Why do you want to abolish the Homeland Reserve Army? Let's be quiet. It's very unfortunate, but I have to admit that the more I mention this promise in any way, the more opportunities Park Chung-hee has to attack me, with no benefit to me at all. I will not say a word about the abolition of the Reserve Army in future campaigns. Then Park's offensive will naturally disappear. I agree that the best response is not touch issue Reserve Army at the point where your promise is starting to be linked with anti-communist propaganda. Kim Il-sung died, was assassinated by his own military because it was going to enter talks with South for reunification. Really? Interesting. It's time to visit all over the country to meet the people and campaign for election. Where would you like to go? I will campaign in downtown Seoul. Seoul is the most populous region, and it's also most sensitive to President Park's anti-democratic behavior. You travel around Seoul with NDP politicians and met countless cheering citizens. Meanwhile, Park Chung-hee campaigned with Kim Jong-pil in Daejeon, the central city of Cheongcheong, and appealed for support. I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of these correctly. I'm trying here, but keep visiting Seoul. That's the strategy. Not long ago, the U.S. unilaterally notified South Korea that it would withdraw the 7th Division of the USFK. Can you tell me your opinion on this and the direction our country should take in relationship with the United States in the future? In my opinion, withdrawal was obviously wrong, but it has great implications for us. That is, we need to turn it into a country that can keep the peace without American troops, not a country that relies on the United States for security. In other words, we must achieve real peace through conversation between the two Koreas and joint security guarantees of neighboring powers. Park Chung-hee has criticized that it's just an absurd ideal that can never be realized, but you conveyed your values of peace well to the people. Although it is not an important issue in this election, you've always insisted strongly on the need for local self-government since you entered politics, and the implementation of local self-government is included in your promises. Why should our country implement a local self-government system? Well, instead of thinking why I want local self-government, think about why Park Chung-hee doesn't want it. He does not implement it because he wants to suppress the growth of people's political consciousness and to control all state power. In short, dictatorship. Well done, Park can't respond properly to this kind of attack. Continue to emphasize President Park's anti-democratic attitude. Checkmate. Keep visiting Seoul. The longer Park Chung-hee has been in power, more severe his media control and opposition have been. In recent years, many people feel that freedom of speech is severely restricted. What would you do to restore freedom of speech? I love the maxim, freedom of speech either exists or not. There is no such thing as partial or adequate freedom of speech. On my first day in office, all media will be subject to complete freedoms with no regulations. This promise was incredibly attractive to the press, even more than Park's appeasement. During the rest of the election, all the media, even the conservative Chosun Ilbo, will give you favorable coverage. Some of your advisors suggest that you should actively use regional conflicts like Park Chung-hee. They argue that the claim of Park, a native of Gyeongsang, intentionally discriminates against Jeolla. A so-called poor treatment of Honam theory can greatly increase your support in Jeolla. Would you accept this strategy? have to maintain a decent and conscientious image in public, but that strategy sounds too great an idea to ignore. On my behalf, I will let the politicians of the NDP promote the theory. Yu Qingshan and Yi Chiosiong, who are from Jeolla like you, took the lead in the argument and received a lot of support from people in Jeolla. However, Park is spreading false rumors that throughout Gyeongsang, that people in Jeolla are boycotting Gyeongsang products. Interesting indeed. Let's get working and visiting Seoul. I'll read that in a second, Kev. I'm getting to the point where I need to keep my attention. Currently, South Korea is dispatching about 45,000 troops to Vietnam. However, since 1969, several countries, led by the United States, have gradually withdrawn their troops from Vietnam. Also, Park Chung-hee recently announced that he would consider a phased withdrawal of Korean troops. Are you thinking of withdrawing troops from Vietnam too? The beginning guy in the NDP have opposed the dispatch, fearing that innocent young people will lose their lives. Nevertheless, Park Chung-hee pushed ahead with dispatch troops to Vietnam, and voters should be clearly aware of the incompetence of President Park, who has begun to consider withdrawing troops as the war's turned unfavorable. He emphasized your consistency on the issue, but Park launched a counterattack, referring to financial support from the United States in exchange for sending troops to Vietnam. After a treaty on basic relations between the Republic of Korea and Japan was signed in 1965, the scale of trade with Japan began to increase rapidly. Do you think we should further promote exchanges with Japan in the future? No comment. I will not bother to express my opinion on an issue that is not important in the current situation. Fair enough, Kev. Good seeing you, my friend. I'll see you out and about. It's a good choice. Korea-Japan relations are not a major issue in this election after all. I'm back in a few hours. I'll see you in a few hours. Maybe. Probably. Visit Seoul. Once again, the time has come to visit all over the country and meet countless people in person. Where would you like to go? I should visit a place where I can get a national boost, not a specific region. It is the United States. Book a flight to Washington right away. After meeting liberal politicians such as Hubert Humphrey and Edward Kennedy, you return to Korea with several press conferences. This helped dispel public concerns about your lack of diplomatic experience. Recently, as drills of former military education universities have become essential and greatly strengthened, university students are protesting nationwide, demanding the abolition of drills. Do you support these protests? Fair enough. Well, I absolutely support the series of protests against government oppression. Park should immediately stop trying to suppress protest or using the police and promise students to abolish or improve drills. Protests are growing in scale day by day, but Park criticized the chaos caused by the protest and claimed that you contributed to it. Sounds like a bunch of excuses if you ask me. Visiting Seoul. Park Chung-hee is putting a huge amount of national budget into the election campaign. It's becoming increasingly difficult to raise support in the usual way. To catch up with this gap, you'll have to raise a lot of funds and use them in your campaign. How would you like to finance the campaign? Well, what we need now is not funding, but to expose President Park's electoral fraud to the public. Install a wiretap at the DRP headquarters. I'll figure out the exact details of a fraudulent budget managing, using dishonest methods to identify election fraud. Anyway, you don't get what you wanted, but you unexpectedly got a recording of DRP lawmakers conspiring to rig the election. Park, embarrassed when it was released, claimed that the transcript was fabricated, but the public sentiment is clearly fluctuating. What are your thoughts on the current birth control policies in our country? Well, the excessive population is rather a burden on our economy, and the current policy of creating social atmosphere that encourages having fewer children and raising them well is very appropriate. This seems perfectly consistent with Park Cheong-hee's argument, but it seems common sense to almost everyone that the fertility rate should be lowered. It probably won't hurt your support. Let's get to Seoul. There's one way to increase your support for sure. It's a debate. Would you like to suggest a debate with Park Cheong-hee discuss policy? Park acceptably broadcast live across the country on TV and radio. If I can defeat Park in the debate, it can be the best chance to secure my victory. I will spread false rumors about Park's family so that he will accept the debate. Park Cheong-hee and Yong-so had an affair. Park Yong-hee is illegitimate. Furious by your excessive false attacks, Park pushed ahead with the debate to meet and condemn you, despite dissuasions. Naturally incensed, he couldn't cope properly with your sharp questions, and in the end, you won the debate by a landslide. After so many incidents, this chaotic election is almost over at last. Now I'd like to ask you 3 final questions. The first question, are there any election strategies you would like to use again among those I've proposed to you or implemented? Let's do prevention of election fraud. I'm very concerned about the possibility of Park Cheong-hee rigging the election to win. We will train NDP members to monitor the polls in countless sites across the country so that elections are held as fairly as possible. Park also always claims that the election should be held fairly. He criticized you for being too paranoid, but this measure may actually have prevented his election manipulation plan. Got him. And here's the second question. Is there anything you'd like to say one last time to appeal to the people to vote for you? I have strong evidence that if Park Cheong-hee wins again, elections will be eliminated in the future, and President Park will take power permanently. Let's bring an end to the Park Cheong-hee administration, which has been tarnished by dictatorship and corruption. Against your argument, Park has made a firm promise not to run in the election again. Which one will the people trust most? Your awards are Park Cheong-hee's. Now the last question. Which region will he finally visit the day before the election? Well, how are we doing election-wise? We'll win these 2 regions. We'll win Busan. We'll win Jeju. We're not going to do too well in Gangwon, but there's only so much we could do there, I think. Well, I think the last campaign should be held in a symbolic place. I will go to Seoul, the capital of our country. You finish your campaign in Seoul with your wife, Lee Hee-ho, and return home to watch the results of vote counting. Many blessings to you, lawmaker Mr. Kim. One last thing before I actually do go to bed. What do you got? Yeah, that flashing is annoying. Oh dear. Alright, the South is in. We're heading the vote so far. Hanging strong still yet. Those are going to be our best 2 regions I already knew. Yep. Park is starting to catch up with us. We got Jeju Island, though. That's good. Okay, we got Gyeonggi and Seoul. That's pretty huge already. We're hanging strong. We're hanging in very well. He won that area, Gangwon. Wasn't surprised there. There we go, 51.6% to 47%. He won the 1971 presidential election, but it's not over yet. You beat everyone's expectations to win this election. Congratulations. However, it does not appear that your victory will be easily confirmed. This is because the defeated Park Cheong-hee did not recognize the election result, claiming that you and the NDP committed major voter fraud. If he doesn't accept your results by Inauguration Day, our democracy will surely face a major ordeal. But don't worry too much. The people already regard your victory as a fait accompli. They will no longer tolerate Park's tricks to maintain his power. All the people are on your side, so I hope you leave the government well with them. You're gonna do more Cold War stuff, which might be up for doing the USSR campaign. Potentially, yeah. I'm gonna do South Korea coming up right after this, Cold War Iron Curtain. And then I'll figure it out. I'll figure all that out from here. But anyway, that'll be when you wake up, and this will be after the day for all YouTube people. So anyway, let's go ahead and check the results by state. Check the closest states. Pretty close there. Busan was pretty close, about 20,000 votes. What was the margin here? About 8,000. And North Cheongkong, Cheongcheong. I don't know quite how you say it. Jeju was about 7,000 votes, but not too much for Jeju. In Gangwon, we did fine in. Korea's fallen to baseness, true. So this is the actual results of the election, I believe. And then this guy became a dictator. He got shot. And this guy became president later on. I will check it out. I'll definitely check it out. Possibly. I don't know if it's going to be in this stream, though. But yeah. That's about it. I haven't checked this out yet. Look at that. Yeah, see, he eventually became president in 1997 after Park got shot. In real life, he did a coup the next year. Took out democracy. And yeah, now, well, it's not going to happen in this timeline. It's all good. Oh, before, yeah, I understand what you mean now. My brain's not working any good. Anyway, I'm going to end the video here. So thanks always for watching, my friends. If you like this video, like it. Not feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of this content, feature the sub button for uploads weekdays as well as occasionally Saturdays. A lot of new campaign trail stuff as well as a lot of strategy game stuff in general. So if that piques your interest, check it out. Leaving comments or feedback or ideas for a series down in the comment section below. I read all of them I get, and I appreciate all the feedback I might get. And yeah, that's really it for now, my friends. I thank you for watching. My name is Mr. Dogbot333, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye now.